Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum to all of you. I hope that you all are fine, happy, and fresh. This is your science teacher, Muhammad Mashood Khan, and today we are going to start chapter number 7 and we will discuss some topics from it. But before we start today's topic, we are going to discuss what we have discussed in the previous lecture. We have discussed about force, that what is a force. We said that force is basically a push or a pull. What is push and pull? Push, we discussed that when you move any object away from you, that is called a push, and when you are dragging something towards yourself is called a pull. Then we discussed about the contact forces, and to understand the contact forces, we took the example of a kid who was sitting on a tricycle and there were two kids who were just pushing it. So you saw that the hands of the two kids were directly in contact with the tricycle, or the hands were touching the cycle. So whenever two objects are touching each other and there is a force exerted, such force is called the contact force. Then we discussed a force which we discussed that even when the two objects are not in contact, they are far away from each other, the force can exist between them. And we took the example of a gravitational pull. We took the example of a gravitational pull of Earth exerted on the moon to keep it in its orbit. That was the example when two objects were far away from each other. Then we discussed about the forces acting on a bridge, and we discussed this in three parts. First was the tension, the second compression, and the third was bending. Tension is like a stretching force. Whenever there is a force applied on an object and its direction, the two forces are applied on an object and the direction of the two forces are exactly opposite to each other, and it produces some stretch in that object, that is called a tension. Just like we took the example of a spring, that when force is applied on both ends of the spring and the forces are opposite in direction to each other, the size of the spring is increased, and it means that force has caused stretching in the spring, so that is called the tension. Compression is opposite to the tension, like the direction of the forces are pointing towards each other, and it causes some kind of a squeezing effect in an object, or it can shorten the length of the object, so that is called the compression. And bending is just like a curve produced in an object is called the bending. Like we took the example of a bridge. When a heavy object or a heavy load is passing through a bridge, you can observe that there is a curve produced in the bridge. Or you can take the example of a rope, that if you tie a rope from both ends with a wall, and the rope is tightly connected to the walls of two different walls. So if you will hang any heavy object from the center, you will see that there is a curve produced in the rope. So that curve produced is basically the bending of the rope, and this bending is basically nothing but a curvature produced. So now today we are going to discuss some more effects of the forces in different aspects. We will discuss about force. We said that force is push or a pull or a twist. And what can force do? So we say that all around you things move or are in motion. Whenever there is a change in motion, a force has acted. So force is an agent that can cause a motion in an object which is at rest, or force is an agent which can stop an object which is already moving. So these are also the this is how you can describe forces also. So furthermore, in discussing about forces, so we say that a force is when an object is pushed, pulled, stretched or squashed. Force can change the shape of an object, the speed of an object, and direction of the object which is traveling. So we will discuss this. These are some new aspects of the forces, that forces can change the shape of an object, it can change the speed of an object and direction of the object. Now we will discuss these effects of the forces one by one. As you can see, force can change the direction of the moving object. So for the picture, you can see that a footballer uses a force to change the direction of motion of the ball. Like for example, when footballers are playing football, they apply force on the football to change the direction. They pass the ball to each other. So while passing to each other, you see that the football is changing its direction continuously. So that gives that, which proves that force can change the direction of the object. Force can stop an object moving. So again, we can take the example from a football goalkeeper, that when a kick is made on a goal of the football, or the post of the football, you see the goalkeeper stops the ball. So while stopping it, what he is doing, basically he is applying force in the opposite direction to stop that ball. So force is an agent that can stop a moving object. So this picture proves this thing. The next is that a force can change the speed of the moving object. This is the most interesting one. Yes, a force can change the speed of the moving object. As you can see, a force can, like for example, someone is riding a bicycle. So if you will exert more force on the pedals, the cycle will move more quickly, which means that the force has caused the change in the speed of the bicycle, which shows that speed can be reduced or speed can be increased by the influence of the force. Now, the question arises how you can measure the force. So here, the basic level, we say that the forces can be measured by a force meter. This has a spring inside, and the larger the force, the more the spring stretches, and the further the pointer moves down the scale. You can see in the picture that this is a force meter which contains a spring inside it, and there is a load attached to it. Beneath it there is a hook with which you have just attach a load, which is like a mass of 1 kg. So when the mass of 1 kg will be attached to this hook, what will happen, you have to hold this force meter from that ring. So you will see that the spring is stretched. So there is a pointer attached to the spring, and there is also scale out from on the outer part of that force meter. There is a scale which show the reading that how much the spring is stretched. So you see this red pointer, when it goes down, it means that there is a stretch produced in the spring. So we say that the greater the stretching means the higher will be the reading, which means that greater force is applied. So if you attach lesser mass here, it means lesser weight. Like lesser force will be acting downward, so it will stretch the spring lesser, which means that the force is in less quantity. So this is how you can measure the force. Now, once you have checked the reading, you must need a unit for a force. So the unit for force is Newton. The name is because of the famous physicist Sir Isaac Newton. A force meter is often called a Newton meter. So this is some extra information about the force meter, that the unit of the force is Newton. We measure the force in newtons, and it is because of the famous physicist Sir Isaac Newton. So concluding till now, we have learned in this lecture about that force is a push, pull, or a twist. Then we discussed about the effects of the forces, that it can cause change in the shape of an object, it can cause the change the speed of an object, and it can change the direction of a moving object. For this, we discussed about when we talked about the change in the direction. So we took the example of a footballer, that when a footballer kicks a football, So you can see a football was already moving and he kicked the ball in the different direction, so it changed its direction. While passing to each other, the footballers are continuously changing the direction of the football, which means that force can change the direction of a moving object. Then we discussed about that how force can stop a moving an object. So we took the example of goalkeeper of a football, that when a kick is aimed on the football goal, so a goalkeeper exerts a force in the opposite direction to stop that ball, which means that force can stop a moving object. Then we discussed about that how a force can change the speed of the object. So we took the example of a bicycle, that when a greater force is applied on the pedals, this bicycle moves with a higher speed, which means that force can cause the increase in the speed of an object. In the same way, the force can be exerted to reduce the speed of the object. So this is what we have learned today. I hope that you have understood this all, and if there will be any question, definitely